Good morning, YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share, please. I'd like to talk a little bit about Gypsy's parole. A little bit about that part. Okay. Now, if we first think about it, let's talk about this. She was arrested, what, June 14th, June 15th, 16th, something like that. Okay. You'll notice that she was arrested, and when she was taken into custody, she never bonded out. Okay. So her time started ticking, minus the time she was in Wisconsin. Okay. Where she was held there until she got back to Missouri. How long? So I guess that was probably a week or something, if I do the math. Because from the time she got to the Greene County Jail, her time started ticking on that charge. Okay, and you get all your jail credit. So from whatever date, and so it would have been June 25th. Remember, the crime was on the 10th, 9th and 10th. June 25th, she would have, I guess, arrived in Greene County Jail, because exactly 10 years later, on the 25th, on 2025, remember, 2015, 2025, exactly 10 years later, that's when her parole was up, right? June 25th. Follow me here. So it was the date of arrest minus the time she sat in Wisconsin. That she just sat waiting to be extradited. Okay? Well, she's not extradited because they didn't fight extradition. That would have been a long process, but she would not have gotten any of the jail credit for that, because she's in Wisconsin's jail. Okay? You just have to follow me on this. Okay? So here's the deal. So her whole 10 years, that's why she got off parole on June 25th, because that was 10 years. She got sentenced to 10 years. Okay? Here's the deal in Missouri. And it's like this, okay, where I practice in Florida, we don't have parole. Parole stopped in like the late 80s or early 90s there. There are still people on parole that are on parole for life and stuff, because if it goes under the guidelines of when you were arrested. Whatever the guidelines were when you got arrested, when you committed the crime, because you could get arrested years later, that could have changed. It goes by that. So there are people still on parole in Florida, and they have to keep parole officers until some people are on for like 30 or 40 years, and then when they get off or they pass away, or the ones that are on for life, they have to keep doing parole in Florida, keep the few officers they have until the people on parole for life die. But no one gets sentenced to parole anymore since the 90s for sure. So they don't have that at all. They have probation. You screw up probation, you go to prison. All right. Well, anyway, in Missouri, and like a lot of other states, they have parole. And the rule in Missouri is, if you do a violent crime, which obviously second-degree murder of your mother, cutting her up and shit, is a violent crime, right? You have to do 85% of your sentence. Then you are eligible for parole. The numbers for everyone else are different. I believe, I'm not sure, in Missouri it's 30% or 33%. I think it's 30%. You can come up for parole the first time on any other thing that's nonviolent. All right. So her very first time she could come up for parole was at 8.5 years, 85%. Follow me? Her sentence was going to end for this crime on June 25th of 2025, no matter what happened. If her ass was sitting in prison or she's on parole, it doesn't matter what she did. You guys are like, oh, she violates, she goes back to prison. Well, she would have went back. Actually, she would have went back to the county jail and stayed there because she didn't have enough time left. They would have timed her out in the county jail is what they would have done. But the sentence is ending the June 25th because that's 10 years later. The sentence is 10 years. They can't give her a day more than 10 years on this charge. For it, no matter what happens, she can catch a new charge, but then that's a new charge. And even the new charge had violated her parole. The parole for the murder would still have ended on June 25th, no matter what happens. Her sentence ends that day, no matter what happens. I need you to understand this. Okay. So then the first time she can come up parole is 85% when she did. Okay. Now, there's another law in Missouri. If it's your first time in prison, which it was hers, they cannot max you out. They could not make her stay 100%. She could not stay all the way till June 25th of 2025 in prison, because you just can't do that. However, this first one, if I understand the law correctly, I never practiced in Missouri. If I understand the law correctly, It's the last year, 365 days. They would had to have let her out no matter what kind of hell she raised in prison, unless she caught a new charge, I guess, on parole that last year, because they can't max you out on your first time. Okay. But this first one that was 18 months or whatever before, a year and a half before, whatever, that first one, they should have not let her out. They should have said, no, chickie, we'll see you in 6 months. They should not have let her out. No way. Because listen to me, only 8%, I'm pretty sure this is a number, it's close to this, 8-point-something% of people in Missouri that are up, that are for murder, only like 8% or something close to that get out on parole anyway. And most of them, I don't think, on their first time. And one thing they have in common, they all had 0 violations and were fucking perfect angels in prison. And this motherfucker here, listen, okay, I got him here. These are the ones listed. If you don't believe me or whatever, or I want to give credit anyway, on YouTube, 1980s Millennial Commentate and Into the Weeds, when they were doing all that with the email, I don't know, they might still be doing that shit. But she, over at 1980 Millennial Commentate, she's paid for all the FOIAs and all this stuff. She's got everything on her. Okay, go over there. And they had all the violations laid out, and they were telling them, and I had them written down somewhere, every one of them, but these are the ones I've committed to memory. And some of them I don't even have on here. Okay? And you're going to learn some of them weren't even listed with these ladies that they were reading off over there that they don't have listed. Okay? Because there's a couple of them I'm going to tell you about that we all know about, we've all heard about, that if those would have showed up at the parole board, I don't think they could have let her go, no matter what. But the parole board got the call and said, let this bitch out. They got the call that they don't question. They're going to get a little bonus check or something coming their way. Just shut up and do it. Grant this bitch parole. Okay? Here are the violations that I recall. You can go check over there again on YouTube, 1980s Millennial Commentates. Okay. We've got violating count 2 times. That alone, shit. I know people like count. Who cares? That is very serious in prison and jail. That is you fuck up the count. That means she wasn't sitting up on her bed and doing what she's supposed to and being quiet while they're trying to do the count. Again, got to bring this little anecdote in. Not my oldest one, my second daughter is a correctional officer in Florida, in prison. Okay? And she told me that when she was in school for that, they told her the most important thing that they do all day, more than feeding them, although they always feed them at some point, is the count. Is because they have a responsibility to the community to make sure all these motherfuckers are there. They count them 5 or 6 times a day. The most important thing they do is the count. And this bitch has violated the count 2 times. And if it's writing, that means they wrote her up for it. Okay, or there wouldn't be record of it. If the police just said, shut the fuck up, Blanchard, because she's violating count or whatever it is she's doing. Who knows? Who knows with this idiot? Who knows? These were in writing, or they wouldn't have made it on this fucking report. All right? She got caught getting a tattoo. Now you guys think, oh, well, what a big deal, they're in prison. Well, it's really not to us, but to them it is. Because number one, you got to steal materials and shit from somewhere, from medical or fucking from the library or from education or something. You got to get the shit to make a needle. I happen to know how they do that. They take the staplers apart and then they take that spring in there. Why am I telling everyone this? Well, we're not in prison. It doesn't matter. And then they use lighter, they use fire, and then they pull with the fire and the thing pulls out and they can make a bunch of needles out of it. Okay? They pay someone that works in education, or the library, or medical to steal them the thing. Not even the whole stapler. Someone that works up there, that's a trustee or just works up there. That's their job. Steal the thing out of the stapler. I'll give you $10. Bring that bitch back here because they're going to make a bunch of money doing tattoos. Okay? That's how it works. Anyway, tattoos are serious because guess what? It's blood. They're using blood. It's blood, you know. You have to puncture the skin and then put ink in there. It's a health risk. Hepatitis. A bunch of people in there have hepatitis. All of them, A, B, C, but fucking all of them, and AIDS, HIV. Okay, so HIV rather. So that's not good to have a tattoo. That's a major thing. You go to the hole for 30 or 60 days for that. You're supposed to. Not this motherfucker. Well, I don't know what happened to her, but oh, she made a fire alarm. This bitch set a fire alarm off in her pod because she was smoking in her cell. Now, I didn't check the statute, but I don't even know if smoking is allowed in the prisons anymore in Missouri. I don't know that. I should check that. In Florida, they haven't been in a long time. Florida, you can't smoke in the prisons or the fucking jails. It's been that way for a long time. So I don't know. So not only is she setting fire alarms off, probably you weren't even allowed to have cigarettes in there. And I know you're not allowed to smoke inside. When they had it in Florida, you're supposed to smoke when you went outside to fucking wreck, or when you went out to your meals on the way to and from or whatever. That's when you're supposed to smoke in Florida. I don't know about Missouri. Okay. I can't dream it's any different. I need to hurry up. Holy shit. Inappropriate messaging. Then it's in writing. One time she tells him, she says, her response, her written response, instead of just saying, I don't have one, she writes, well, I was vague. I didn't use the words dick or pussy or anything. Okay. So there's a couple of them. Using other inmates' accounts. Now, I didn't look into this or look at it very clearly, but usually what that is like one of her buddies owed money to the facility for medical or something. Not that they make you pay, but they make you pay like a copay, like $5 or $10 or something just to go. And then whatever comes of it, they don't charge you like a medical bill like that. But you can owe them money for different things. There's other shit too. Helping them, mailing out your legal mail, getting copies. There's things you can owe the facility for. And if you get money in from your family or friends, they fucking subtract that first. Well, if you send it into your friend's account that doesn't owe money, then they can just go buy you shit in canteen for it, and you give them a little something, and now you have circumvented owing. Well, criminals doing criminal things. Surprise, surprise. And GYPSY fit right in. Not to mention, now this one's not in writing, but she accused another inmate of sexually assaulting her, and a bunch of shit over there. She should have gotten in trouble for that if she didn't. Now, we all know, we've heard of her. Now, I don't know this is for sure. This certainly wasn't written down. No way she would have went home. They say she was screwing guards. I was even told that she gave one herpes, but I don't know how we could possibly know that. But this is just word on the street. I'm just telling you what I've. Now, that's just pure gossip. I'm not telling you I know that, but that's just what I've heard. And I think a lot of people have heard this too. She's screwing guards. And can you imagine? I mean, come on, guys. If you go over to Good Wives Network here on YouTube and just type in Good Wives Network, Fancy Maselli interviews K. Hughes, K. period, last name Hughes, correctional officer. This woman was watching GYPSY when she first got arrested, when she first came to Greene County Jail over Nick and her. Okay. She said she watched this bitch she said, from behind the glass in the officer station without hearing anything. I watched this bitch go from inmate to inmate working them. Brand new in jail the first time, hit the ground running. She said we had to be careful how we housed her because she was so hypersexual. This is when she first got there, just the first year she was there. She took a plea agreement, and then she was gone to fucking prison. When she first hit the ground running, guys, they had to be careful how they housed her. They caught her in, if I'm not mistaken, go watch the interview, please. Good Wives Network, Fancy Maselli did the interview. In stairwells, being sexual with other girls, and even on the fucking rec yard. She should have never gotten out on parole that first time. No way, no how. One more piece of circumstantial evidence. She cut a deal with the devil, and that's the only reason. No other reason why she got out. I'll see you in the next video.